Hello and welcome to Lost Love Chronicles.
No wife, no kids, no life. Maya's new husband had sneered when we unexpectedly crossed paths at a restaurant. Just a waste of space, Maya had added with a laugh. I didn't respond. I just smiled and walked away. 3 days later, my voicemail was overflowing with their frantic messages. I never expected to see Maya again, not like that. The last time we were in the same room, we were signing the divorce papers. It was a bitter final step to a relationship that had ended long before the ink dried. Whatever we once had was gone. Seeing her now, carefree and laughing, ripped open a wound I thought had long since healed. I hadn't planned to see anyone that night. I only stopped by the restaurant for a quiet meal, just a simple way to close out my day, before heading home to the silence I'd grown to accept. The scent of garlic butter and seared steak filled the air, and I let myself relax, just for a moment. Then I heard her. I wasn't even facing their table yet, but I recognized her voice instantly. Maya, the woman who once promised to love me forever, now sharing dinner with her new husband, Gavin. I didn't intend to eavesdrop, but they weren't trying to be discreet. No wife, no kids, no life, Gavin said loud enough for half the restaurant to hear, his voice thick with smugness. Just a waste of space, Maya chimed in, her voice easily carrying across the room. Their words hit me hard, squeezing the air from my chest. Some patrons glanced my way, a few smirking, others more blatant in their amusement. For a second, the whole room seemed to collapse inward. My body stiffened, instinct rising, rage, hurt, shame. The old me would have snapped. Back then, when Maya and I were still married, I'd have thrown their words back at them with venom. But that man was gone. I drew in a slow, steady breath. My pulse calmed. I sipped my water and set the glass down, deliberately. Then I did something they hadn't counted on. I smiled. Not a smirk. Not a fake, bitter grin. A real smile, slow, sure, unshaken. Gavin faltered just slightly. Maya shifted in her seat, her laughter dimming. They wanted to provoke me. They wanted to see me fall apart. I refused. I pulled out my wallet, laid enough cash on the table to cover the bill, stood, and walked out without even glancing at them. I heard them laughing as I left, but the sound had changed, forced, uncertain. Let them think they'd won. Let them have their petty moment. But life has a way of flipping the script. 3 days later, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. I let it go to voicemail. I had no reason to listen. Whatever they wanted, I didn't care. But when I finally checked the messages, their voices weren't full of mockery anymore. They were full of desperation. Maya's voice trembled through the speaker. Please, we need to talk. Then came Gavin, sounding nothing like the smug man from the restaurant. Pick up, man. It's serious. The missed calls kept coming. So did the messages. Something had clearly happened, and now, for whatever reason, they needed me. At first, ignoring them was easy. I'd spent years unlearning the reflex to answer when Maya called, training myself not to look for her name on my phone, to kill the instinct to care. She had made her choices. I had made mine. We'd walked away from each other, and I had long since closed that chapter of my life. But the calls didn't stop. Each morning, I'd wake up to a phone full of missed calls and voicemails, their voices practically pleading. Maya's tone, once sharp and self-assured, was now unsteady and anxious. Please, we need to talk. At first, I deleted the messages without listening to the end. But as they kept coming, especially Gavin's curiosity began to gnaw at me. Gavin, who just days ago had mocked me without hesitation, now sounded completely different. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something I never expected from him. Fear. Man, pick up. It's serious. We need to talk. I sat with my phone in my hand, unsure of what to do. I didn't know them anything. Whatever mess they were in was their problem. A part of me even enjoyed the idea of letting them sit in silence, the way they had laughed at me before. They had made me feel small, insignificant, and now they were the ones reaching out. Still, the sheer number of calls made me wonder what had happened that was so urgent it drove Gavin to swallow his pride and call me. Eventually, I answered one of Maya's calls. Hello, I said, keeping my tone neutral, distant. There was a pause, then a sharp inhale. Thank God, she breathed. You answered. She didn't sound anything like the woman from the restaurant. This Maya was rattled, panicked. What do you want? I asked flatly. Please, we need to meet. It's urgent. I stayed silent, letting her sit in the discomfort, letting her feel what it meant to ask for something from me. Why? I asked finally. She hesitated. I could hear Gavin's voice in the background, low, insistent, as if he were feeding her lines. Our business, she began, but faltered. Her voice trembled, the tension in her breath unmistakable. This wasn't a woman trying to gloat. This was someone genuinely afraid. Our business is in trouble, she said at last. Serious trouble. I leaned back, adjusting the phone against my ear. She let out a frustrated breath, clearly irritated by my lack of response. We need help, she said. I smirked to myself, even though she couldn't see it. And you think I can help? Silence. Then Gavin's voice cut in louder now. Look, man, we're in deep. And you're involved, whether you like it or not. I frowned. Excuse me? Maya took the phone back. We need to explain in person. I thought about hanging up. Part of me wanted to. Let them stew in whatever mess they'd created for themselves. But Gavin's words echoed in my mind. You're involved, whether you like it or not. I sighed. Fine. They named a small cafe on the far side of town, secluded enough to make it clear they didn't want to be seen meeting with me. That only made me more curious. The next morning, I arrived and spotted them already seated in a corner booth. They looked worn out, jittery. Maya was pale, her normally impeccable appearance a little undone. Her hair wasn't as styled as usual, and she was anxiously shredding a napkin. Gavin, typically full of swagger, sat rigidly, eyes darting around the room like he expected someone to jump him. I didn't rush. I ordered a coffee, took my time, and finally slid into the seat across from them. They both watched me, eyes filled with unease. All right, I said, taking a sip. What's so urgent? Gavin cleared his throat, gave Maya a quick glance, then spoke. We're having financial difficulties. I raised an eyebrow. And that's supposed to concern me? Maya swallowed. It's bad, she admitted. The business. She trailed off, clutching the napkin tighter. We're on the verge of collapse. I tilted my head. I thought Gavin was some kind of financial genius. Gavin tensed at the jab, but didn't rise to it. He leaned in instead, lowering his voice. There's more. It's not just the business. It's the loans. Something in his tone made me sit up straighter. What loans? I asked, a slow dread creeping in. Maya bit her lip, guilt washing over her expression. She inhaled shakily. You're listed as a co-signer. The words didn't register at first. I stared at her, blinking. What? She looked away. On some of our loans. A high-pitched ringing filled my ears. The kind that comes when your brain refuses to accept what it's hearing. I never co-signed anything, I said, slowly. She flinched. The ringing intensified. What are you saying? I demanded. Gavin shifted in his seat. Look, man, it's... I turned to Maya, my stomach churning. Tell me, exactly what do you mean? She took a breath. There are multiple loans. Hundreds of thousands. And they all have your name on them. My pulse spiked. That's not possible. I never signed anything. Gavin exhaled sharply, eyes anywhere but on mine. And then it hit me. I sat upright, ice flooding my veins. You forged my signature, I whispered. Neither of them denied it. Suddenly, the cafe felt too small, too hot. My breath came fast. My fists clenched. How much? I asked, my voice barely above a growl. Maya hesitated. How much? I repeated, more sharply. She spoke quietly. Over $400,000. I let out a slow, bitter laugh. 400 grand, in my name? I leaned back, exhaling hard. Gavin started to speak. Look, man, it's not as bad as it sounds if you just help us. I raised a hand to silence him. Let me get this straight, I said, my voice steady but lethal. You both humiliate me in public. You laugh in my face. You call me a joke. Then, behind my back, you steal my identity, rack up hundreds of thousands in debt, and now you want my help? They said nothing. I shook my head, gripping the coffee cup so tight I thought it might crack in my hand. Unbelievable, I muttered. I stood up, chair scraping slowly behind me. Maya reached for my arm. Please, she said, her voice desperate. If you don't help us, we're finished. I pulled my arm away. You already are, I said, then walked out, leaving them to rot in the ruin they had created. They had stolen from me my name, my identity, my future. Now it was time to make them pay. I didn't go home right away. After storming out of the cafe, my hands were still trembling, my mind spinning through every desperate explanation, every wild hope that what I'd just heard wasn't real. But there was no denying it. Maya and Gavin had forged my signature. They had stolen my identity, trashed my credit, and used my name to bankroll their crumbling business and extravagant lifestyle. For $100,000. The number kept ringing in my head, like a drum. I got into my car and gripped the steering wheel so tight my hands started to ache. I tried to take slow, deep breaths, fighting to calm the anger building inside me. This wasn't just betrayal. It was criminal. I needed answers. Proof. I needed to know exactly how far this went. So instead of going home, I drove straight to my lawyer's office. Mr. Cameron had been my attorney for years. He was calm, unflappable, the type who never flinched under pressure and always had a strategy. When I burst into his office without an appointment, his secretary barely had time to stop me before I was already pacing in front of his desk. He adjusted his glasses and leaned back in his chair. This must be serious, he said, watching me closely. I dropped into the seat across from him, letting out a sharp breath. It's beyond serious. I need you to check something for me. He nodded. Go on. I dragged a hand down my face and met his gaze. I think my ex-wife and her husband forged my signature on several loans. I need to know if it's true. His expression stayed neutral, but I saw the glint in his eyes. How much are we talking? I clenched my jaw. For 100,000. That got a reaction. Mr. Cameron straightened in his chair. That's substantial. No kidding. I exhaled slowly. They admitted it, but I need concrete evidence. He picked up a legal pad and started jotting notes. Did they mention which banks or lenders? I walked him through everything Maya had said at the cafe, my voice rising with each detail. When I finished, he nodded and reached for his phone. I'll make some calls, he said. Give me a few hours. I stood. I'll wait. You should go home. Get some rest. I gave him a look. I'm not leaving until I know how bad this really is. He didn't argue, just nodded and got to work. 3 hours later, I had my answer. And it was worse than I imagined. I sat across from Mr. Cameron as he laid out the documents, loan papers, bank records, everything. All of it tied to my name. None of it with my consent. My signature had been forged on multiple contracts. The loans had been taken out over the course of 2 years. 2 years. They'd been stealing from me long before our run-in at the restaurant. Slowly, carefully, methodically draining my credit, counting on the fact that I would never notice. I felt physically sick. They're screwed, Mr. Cameron said flatly. And they know it. That's why they came to you. I clenched my fists. How bad is it for me? He sighed. Right now, the banks see you as the liable party. Legally, those debts are in your name. But it's fraud, I said through gritted teeth. Exactly, he replied, leaning forward. And that's what we're going to prove. I exhaled slowly, trying to take it all in. What's our next move? First, we freeze any accounts connected to your name that could be used to commit more fraud. Then, we dispute each loan with evidence of forgery. The banks will launch their own investigations, but with the right legal approach, we can shift the liability onto them, not you. I nodded. And what about Maya and Gavin? Mr. Cameron allowed himself a faint, cold smile. Oh, they're in serious trouble. The words settled deep in my chest. They thought they could rob me and get away with it. That I'd roll over, forgive, and help clean up their mess. They were dead wrong. I left Mr. Cameron's office feeling more composed than I had since that humiliating night at the restaurant. But I wasn't finished. I needed more than legal justice, I needed the full truth. So I hired a private investigator. It took less than a day for the PI to dig up more filth. Gavin hadn't only forged my name, he'd been embezzling from their own business, creating fake expenses, doctoring records, and hiding it all with forged documents. And Maya knew. That was the gut punch. She wasn't just a bystander. She had approved fraudulent transactions. She had enabled the entire scheme. Had she ever loved me? Or was I just a stepping stone in her climb through a web of lies? The more I discovered, the angrier I became. I had spent years blaming myself for the failure of our marriage, wondering what I'd done wrong. But now I saw her clearly. She had always been this way. I had just refused to see it. The next morning, my phone rang. It was Maya. I let it go to voicemail. Then Gavin called. I ignored that too. Then came the texts. Maya, please, can we talk? Gavin, we can fix this. Don't do anything crazy. Maya again. I made a mistake, okay? But we can figure it out. Gavin, come on, man. No need to bring lawyers into this. I laughed bitterly at that one. Too late. I typed a single reply. See you in court. I pictured the panic on their faces as they read it. Good. They deserved every ounce of fear and regret. They had betrayed me, stolen from me, and tried to manipulate me. Now it was their turn to face the consequences. I didn't wait around. With the evidence of forgery, theft, and embezzlement in hand, I knew what I had to do. I would confront them not through texts or calls. Face to face. I wanted to see the panic in their eyes when they realized they'd lost. So I arranged a meeting at Maya's house, the house we once shared, the one she'd used to flaunt her new life when she left me. Fitting, really. The same place where she had crushed me would now be the place where the truth caught up with her. As I pulled into the driveway, I took a deep breath and steadied myself. Stay calm. Stay in control. I wasn't here to argue. I was here to end this. Maya opened the door, her face taut with anxiety. You came, she said, almost breathless. I walked past her without a word, my eyes scanning the house. It looked different now, disheveled, tired. The stress had seeped into the walls. Gavin was already in the living room, standing rigid near the couch. He looked terrible. The smug arrogance he usually wore like armor was gone, replaced by something that looked a lot like fear. Good. I pulled a stack of bank documents from my pocket and dropped them onto the coffee table with a thud. Let's talk about these loans, I said, my voice cold and steady. Maya flinched at the sound of the papers. Gavin didn't say a word, his jaw clenched tight. I crossed my arms. Go on. Explain to me why my name is on this disaster. Maya's hands trembled as she picked up the papers, flipping through them as though seeing them for the first time. It's not, she began, then faltered, her voice failing her. Gavin, Ever the bold one, rolled his eyes. It's just paperwork, he said dismissively. You weren't going to use that money anyway. I froze. I had expected excuses, lies, maybe even apologies, but this was raw arrogance. I took a step toward him, forcing him to meet my eyes. You stole from me, I said, my voice dangerously calm. You forged my signature and racked up $400,000 in debt. And you think that's just paperwork? Maya reached out and touched my arm. Please, let's just talk. I pulled away. Now you want to talk? You had every chance before you dragged me into this nightmare. Gavin scoffed, but his fidgeting hands and twitching jaw betrayed his nerves. I leaned in closer. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. His confidence wavered. Look, man, this doesn't have to go legal. I let out a dark, humorless laugh. Oh, we're way past that. I turned to Maya. You knew, didn't you? About the forged documents. About the embezzlement. She swallowed hard and looked away. Tell me the truth, Maya. How long? She hesitated, then murmured, since last year. A bitter smile tugged at my lips. So while you were mocking me in that restaurant, you were already drowning in this mess. She didn't respond. She didn't need to. I straightened, letting out a sharp breath. Here's what's going to happen. Gavin shifted uncomfortably. You're going to help us, right? That made me laugh, an actual laugh. Help you? I repeated. No, I'm going to bury you. His face darkened. What the hell does that mean? I picked up the documents from the table. It means my lawyer has already frozen every account linked to my name. It means every loan has been formally disputed. And it means the bank is about to launch a full investigation into who forged these signatures. Maya exhaled shakily. Please don't do this. Oh, I'm just getting started, I cut in. Because I also hired a private investigator. And guess what he found? Gavin tensed. I smiled. That little embezzlement scheme, you've been running, the one you thought no one would uncover? Maya's eyes went wide. I know everything. I cut her off. And soon, so will the authorities. Gavin's face flushed deep red. You can't prove anything. I pulled out my phone, tapped the screen, and let the audio recording play. Gavin's voice filled the room. I shifted the money around so it wouldn't get flagged, just a few fake invoices, nothing serious. As the words echoed, the color drained from his face. I stopped the recording and slipped the phone back into my pocket. Oh, I can prove it. The silence that followed was suffocating. Maya turned to Gavin, realization crashing over her. You lied to me, she whispered. Gavin shot her a glare. You're no saint either, Maya. I watched as the fragile alliance between them crumbled. Trust dissolved, replaced with bitterness. Finally, Gavin turned to me, his voice tight. What do you want? I smiled faintly. Justice. Maya made a choking sound. This will ruin us. I met her eyes. You ruined yourselves. She reached out, her eyes glistening. I made a mistake. I pulled my hand away. No, a mistake is spilling coffee on someone. Forgetting an anniversary. What you did, that was deliberate. Her lip quivered. Please. I took a slow step back. I don't have any sympathy left for you, Maya. You lost at the moment you signed my name. Gavin, now sweating, dragged a hand through his hair. If we go down, you go down too. I smirked. Wrong. While I've been clearing my name, you've been digging your graves. I turned toward the door. Just before stepping out, I paused. You should start looking for a lawyer, I said over my shoulder. You're going to need one. And with that, I walked out, leaving them to face the wreckage they had created. They thought they could get away with it, that I would just roll over and take it. They were about to learn how wrong they were. I drove home with a storm churning inside me. I had confronted them, made it clear their web of lies was unraveling. But I wasn't satisfied, not yet. This wasn't about revenge, not even about anger anymore. It was about justice. Maya and Gavin had tried to destroy my life, steal my identity, and walk away without consequence. They had mocked me, humiliated me, assumed I was too weak to fight back. They were wrong. By the time I pulled into my driveway, my mind was already turning over the next steps. I wasn't just going to clear my name. I was going to dismantle theirs. The next morning, I was in my lawyer's office before the sun had even risen. Mr. Cameron didn't flinch as I walked in unannounced and dropped a thick folder onto his desk. I want everything locked down, I said, my voice cool and steady. Every bank account, every asset tied to my name frozen. I want disputes filed with every financial institution affected by this fraud. He adjusted his glasses, flipping through the documents. I anticipated this. The disputes are already underway. Legal notices have been sent to the banks, and investigations into the forged signatures have been requested. You'll start seeing progress in the next few weeks. It wasn't fast enough. Not good enough, I said, leaning in. I want pressure. I want them feeling the heat now. Mr. Cameron met my gaze, a small smirk forming on his lips. You really want to go after them, don't you? I didn't blink. They didn't hesitate to destroy me. I won't hesitate to return the favor. He gave a sharp nod. Then we don't just dispute the loans, we press criminal charges. The word criminal sent a chill down my spine, but I nodded. Do it. He immediately picked up the phone and began making calls. But I wasn't finished. After leaving the law office, I met with Reed, the private investigator I had hired. He was a no-nonsense professional who had unearthed more dirt on Gavin in 48 hours than Maya probably had seen in 2 years. Sliding a manila folder across the table, Reed said simply, "You were right." I opened it, my stomach nodding with dark satisfaction. Gavin hadn't just forged my name, he'd been embezzling from their company for years. Fake invoices, phantom employees, money funneled into private accounts. The most damning part? Maya had signed off on most of it. She knew, I muttered, staring at her signature on one of the documents. Reed nodded. She might try to play the victim, but she was complicit. She just didn't realize how deep Gavin's scheme went. I closed the folder and exhaled. Send all of this to the authorities as soon as the banks confirm the forgeries. I want them both facing criminal investigations. Reed smirked. Already in motion. By the end of the day, everything was in place. All accounts tied to my name were frozen. Every fraudulent loan was formally disputed, and I had a seasoned investigator on my side delivering evidence. Then I made one final move. I called Maya's parents. It was late when I dialed the number one I hadn't used in years. Her father answered, his voice thick with sleep. "Hello? Mr. Elson," I said, voice steady. "It's me." A pause. Then, cautiously, "What do you want?" I leaned against my desk. "Did Maya ever tell you she and Gavin took out $400,000 in loans using my name?" Silence. Then a long, deliberate breath. "What did you just say?" I repeated every detail. The forged signatures, the fraudulent loans, the embezzlement. When I finished, I could hear the fury in his breathing. "She swore to us they were doing well," he muttered. "Gavin convinced us he was some kind of business genius." "He's a con artist," I said bluntly. And Maya went along with it. Another pause, then a tight voice. "What do you plan to do?" I let the words hang in the air. "I'm making sure they pay for what they did." He didn't argue. "Keep me updated," he said before hanging up. One by one, the walls were closing in on them. 2 days later, everything started to collapse. I got a call from Mr. Cameron. "They're panicking," he said, his tone almost amused. "Maya and Gavin have been trying to access funds, but the banks are blocking them. They're realizing they can't touch anything connected to your name." I smiled. "Good. And there's more," he continued. "The bank officially flagged the loans as fraudulent. They're launching a full investigation. Once the forged signatures are confirmed, they'll hand the case to law enforcement." My heartbeat steadied. Which means, he said, Gavin and Maya are looking at serious legal trouble." I leaned back in my chair, feeling a grim satisfaction settle over me. They deserved every second of this. That night, my phone rang again. It was Maya. I let it go to voicemail. Then Gavin called. I ignored that too. Soon, the texts started flooding in. "Maya, please, we need to talk." "Gavin, we can fix this. Don't do anything rash." "Maya, I made a mistake, okay? But we can figure this out." "Gavin, come on, man, you don't need to get the police involved." I laughed bitterly. Too late. I typed a single response. "Talk to my lawyer." Within seconds, Maya's typing bubble appeared, then stopped, started again, and stopped once more. I silenced my phone and poured myself a drink. They thought they could take everything from me. They thought I'd roll over and let them get away with it. They had seriously underestimated me. Now they were done. The morning after I sent the final text, I woke up to find over a dozen missed calls from Maya. Gavin had tried calling too, but didn't leave a voicemail. I wasn't surprised. They were desperate now. I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee, scrolling through the notifications. Text after text from Maya pleading, bargaining, trying to convince me to talk. "Maya, please, just hear me out. Maya, I know you're angry, but we can fix this. Maya, don't let it go this far. It doesn't have to be like this." She still didn't get it. I took a slow sip of my coffee and typed my response. "It's already gone this far." A few seconds later, the typing bubble appeared, then stopped. My phone rang again. I let it go to voicemail. I wasn't interested in hearing whatever excuse she had prepared. She wasn't sorry, she was just scared. Good. I had no intention of backing down. By the afternoon, my lawyer called. "They tried to take out more loans," Mr. Cameron said, his tone amused. "The banks rejected them immediately." I exhaled, shaking my head. "They still don't get it," I muttered. "They're panicking," he confirmed. "The bank is investigating every loan tied to your name. The fraud claims have been escalated, and Maya and Gavin's accounts are officially frozen." I felt a dark satisfaction settle in my chest. That means they can't touch a single dollar, right? Not a cent. Perfect, I muttered. "They're going to lose everything." Mr. Cameron's voice was measured. "Yes, they will." I should have felt guilty, but I didn't. They brought this on themselves. A few hours later, my phone rang again. This time, I picked up. "Please." Maya's voice was shaky, her desperation spilling through. Just listen. I stayed silent, waiting. She sniffled, then spoke again. The house. The bank is threatening foreclosure. I didn't respond. She inhaled sharply, her voice breaking. They're saying we have 30 days before we lose everything. I tilted my head, swirling my drink in my hand. And why exactly is that my problem? She let out a soft, broken sob. I waited, but she didn't finish her sentence. Say it, Maya, I pressed. Tell me why you think I should care. Silence. Then, a defeated whisper. Because I messed up. I closed my eyes, letting her words sink in. Messed up was an understatement. Do you even realize what you did? I asked, my voice eerily calm. She sniffled again. I do now. No, you don't, I said sharply. Because if you did, you wouldn't be begging me for help. You wouldn't be asking me to clean up the mess you made. Please, she whispered. We have nowhere else to turn. I exhaled through my nose. What about Gavin? He seemed pretty damn confident the last time I saw him. Her breath caught. She hesitated. He left. I blinked, caught off guard. Excuse me? She let out a bitter, tear-choked laugh. As soon as he realized we were sinking, he packed his bags, took what little cash we had left, and disappeared. I leaned back in my chair, stunned. Gavin had abandoned her. I'd expected him to lash out, to scheme, maybe try to wriggle his way out of the mess. But this was lower than I imagined. Maya was alone now. For a fleeting second, I almost felt pity. Almost. But then I remembered the restaurant, the laughter, the mocking, the way she looked at me like I was nothing. She'd chosen Gavin. She'd laughed in my face, called me a waste of space. And now the man she'd stood beside had run for the hills. Now you understand, I murmured. She drew in a shaky breath. Understand what? What it feels like to be abandoned, I said. To have everything you built ripped away. To be humiliated. She exhaled unevenly. You did this to yourself, Maya. Her breath hitched once more. Goodbye, she whispered. I ended the call. That night, a text came in from an unknown number. Gavin, I hope you're happy, man. You ruined us. I actually laughed. I ruined them. I typed back. You did that all on your own. I never heard from him again. Within a week, their business was shut down. The bank had seized their assets. Their house teetered on the edge of foreclosure. Gavin had vanished, and Maya was left with absolutely nothing. But it didn't stop there. Word of Gavin's fraud got back to his boss once the forged signatures and embezzlement came to light. He was fired immediately. As for Maya, her family disowned her when they learned the truth. Her own parents turned their backs. No money, no home, no husband, no friends, no future. She had no one to blame but herself. A few days later, I got one last voicemail from her. Please, she said, barely audible. We have nothing left. Help me. I listened to it twice. Then, with a slow, satisfied smirk, I deleted it. No reply. No second chances. She was nothing to me now. She had laughed at my pain. And now, she was drowning in hers. Karma had done its job. And as I deleted her message, I knew one thing for certain: this wasn't just about clearing my name anymore. This was about finishing what they started. Maya and Gavin had spent years lying, cheating, stealing, humiliating me without remorse. They thought they'd get away with it. They thought I'd stay silent. Now, I had the power. And I wasn't done. The next morning, I sat across from Mr. Cameron, who had been tracking every move, monitoring the bank's investigation, executing every legal strike with precision. With Gavin and Maya fully cornered, it was time to drive the final nail into the coffin. They're finished, Mr. Cameron said, sipping his coffee as he leaned back in his chair. Maya couldn't access her accounts. Gavin had completely vanished, and the banks were preparing to press charges. I nodded. That's not enough. Mr. Cameron raised an eyebrow. Oh, I want to make sure they don't bounce back from this, I said calmly. I want the fraud charges to stick. I want Maya to face the weight of her choices for the rest of her life. And Gavin, I smirked. I want to ensure he never cons anyone again. Mr. Cameron grinned. You're enjoying this, aren't you? I didn't answer right away. I wasn't doing this for sport. I wasn't heartless. But after all the lies, the betrayal, and the public humiliation, they had it coming. Every bit of it. They brought this on themselves, I said simply. Mr. Cameron gave a firm nod. All right, let's talk next steps. Step 1, criminal charges. The bank had already launched a fraud investigation, but Mr. Cameron recommended we crank up the pressure. We'll file formal charges against both Gavin and Maya, he said. Forgery, fraud, identity, theft, the full list. I tapped my fingers on the desk. What kind of sentence are we talking about if they're convicted? He smirked. Could be several years in prison. I exhaled slowly, feeling that tight sense of satisfaction build in my chest. Do it. Step 2. Family fallout. I had contacted Maya's father before, but now it was time to hit harder. I sent him everything: bank statements, proof of forgery, fraud reports, documents linking Maya directly to the embezzlement. His response came quickly. Mr. Larson, she swore she had no part in this. I can't believe it. She lied to you, I replied. Just like she lied to me. There was a long pause. Then, she's on her own. And that was that. Her own family had disowned her. Maya had officially lost everyone. Step 3. Public exposure. Maya and Gavin had built their lives on smoke and mirrors, pretending to be successful, manipulating others into believing their illusion. It was time to tear that down. A local reporter reached out a few days later. I heard about the fraud case. Would you be willing to share your side? I didn't hesitate. I handed over every document I had. 2 days later, the headline dropped. Local couple exposed in $400,000 fraud scandal. Investigation underway. The article revealed everything: faked signatures, embezzlement, lawsuits, looming criminal charges. Maya and Gavin were now social pariahs. Their neighbors gossiped. Their former friends cut ties. No one wanted to be associated with them. From self-proclaimed elites to disgraced criminals, they were finished. Step 4. The final betrayal. Gavin had been silent for days. Too silent. Then, out of nowhere, he called me. I almost let it go to voicemail, but curiosity won out. Hello? A long pause. Then, you win. I blinked, caught off guard by how defeated he sounded. Excuse me? You win, Gavin repeated. I don't know what else to do. I smirked. You could always turn yourself in. He let out a dry, bitter laugh. Yeah, right. I waited. Then he said something I didn't expect. I'll make a deal. I raised an eyebrow. A deal? I'll testify against Maya, he said. I'll give the police everything: proof of the fraud, the embezzlement, all of it. Just help me out of this. I almost laughed. Gavin was throwing Maya under the bus to save himself. Typical. The moment things got too messy, he did what he always did: ran. I exhaled, pretending to consider it. Why should I trust you? Because, he said quietly, I have proof Maya was the one who came up with the idea to forge your signature. My breath caught. He had evidence? This was better than I could have hoped for. I smiled. Send me the proof. Then we'll talk. A minute later, my phone buzzed with an email. I opened it. Attached were emails, text messages, and even a voice recording of Maya outlining the forged loans. Gavin was guilty, but Maya? She had been the architect. I let out a slow, victorious breath. This was the final piece. I forwarded everything to Mr. Cameron. His reply came almost instantly. With this, Maya won't just lose everything, she could be looking at real prison time. I stared at the message for a beat, then typed back, make sure she does. The aftermath. By the end of the week, Maya was officially under investigation. Gavin, scrambling to save himself, turned witness and cut a deal. With his testimony and the evidence I provided, Maya was facing a steep legal battle. Her family refused to support her. Her friends abandoned her. And Gavin, he betrayed her without hesitation. She had nothing left. Meanwhile, I walked away untouched. My name was cleared. My finances secure. And the best part? I got to watch Maya and Gavin destroy everything they built brick by brick. They had built a life on lies, and now they had no life at all. I stood in my living room, sipping a drink as the evening news played. Maya's mugshot appeared on the screen. Arrest warrant issued in $400,000 fraud case. I exhaled slowly. It was over. I wasn't the loser they had mocked. I wasn't a waste of space. I was the only one who had stood tall. And now, I was finally free. It started with whispers. Maya and Gavin had spent years crafting an image of wealth, success, and superiority. They wanted admiration, envy. They threw lavish parties, wore designer brands, and never missed a chance to flaunt their status. But once the fraud story broke, their carefully built facade collapsed. At first, it was whispers, neighbors noticing the cars gone, gossip in the grocery store about Gavin not showing up to work. Then came the headlines. Local couple exposed in massive fraud scandal. Their faces were plastered everywhere: news outlets, social media, even local broadcasts. The story spread like wildfire. Their entire identity had been built on validation from others. So when the truth came out, when people finally saw them for what they were, it destroyed them in a way no court ruling ever could. The fallout. I didn't have to look for updates, they found me. My phone buzzed constantly. Old acquaintances, ex-coworkers, even people I barely knew reached out. Dude, did you see the news? One text read, Maya is finished. Another came from an old friend. So Gavin was just a con artist all along? Should have figured, he always seemed shady. But my favorite came from Maya's own best friend, Sarah, who messaged me out of nowhere. I had no idea she was capable of something like this. Me? I wasn't surprised. Really? Because I did. I had no desire to reach out to Maya, but I could already picture what she was going through. She was being wiped from existence. First, her social media vanished, likely because the comments were brutal. People weren't holding back. I managed to find a few screenshots online before everything got scrubbed. User 1. Imagine forging your ex-husband's signature and laughing about it in public. This is karma. User 2. Maya and Gavin thought they could scam their way through life. LOL. Enjoy prison. User 3. They used to act like they were better than everyone. Now they can't even pay rent. I won't lie, reading those felt satisfying. Maya and Gavin had mocked me, belittled me, stolen from me, and they thought there would be no consequences. Now, they were facing every one of them. Gavin's downfall. Gavin had gone silent since our last talk. He'd sold Maya out, cutting a deal with the authorities to save himself. But the thing about snakes? They always end up getting bitten. A few days after the story broke, I got a call from my private investigator, Reed. Gavin's in trouble, he said, amusement in his tone. I leaned back in my chair. Tell me something I don't know. Reed laughed. His deal with the authorities got leaked. Now all the people he scammed, they're turning on him. I smirked. So the rats are abandoning ship. Exactly. I wasn't shocked. Gavin had spent his life using people, lying, manipulating, stealing. Now the same people he fooled were making sure he paid. His entire social circle vanished. Old business contacts? Gone. Friends? Disappeared. Even his most loyal defenders were scrambling to cut ties. It wasn't just about avoiding the legal mess. It was self-preservation. No one wanted to be associated with a con artist. Gavin had lost everything, and the best part? He'd done it to himself. Maya's breaking point. Maya, on the other hand, was still trying to fight. Word got to me through a mutual acquaintance. She was desperately begging people for help. She went to her parents first, but they wouldn't even take her calls. Her father's words were clear. You lied to us. You stole from your ex-husband. You're on your own. Then she turned to old friends. One by one, they shut her out. No one wanted to get involved. No one wanted the scandal touching them. Even the people who used to look up to her, the women who once envied her, were mocking her now. One morning, I overheard two women whispering at a cafe table next to mine. Did you hear about Maya? One asked. The fraud case? Of course. Everyone's talking about it, the other replied. She used to act like she was so perfect. Now look, under investigation. The second woman chuckled. Guess she wasn't as smart as she thought. I took a sip of my coffee, struggling to hide the smirk tugging at my lips. The public unraveling had become a spectacle, and the final blow landed just a week later. Maya and Gavin were already flat broke. Their business shut down, their assets frozen. Then came the eviction notice. Maya's house was officially seized by the bank, and the best part? A local news station filmed the entire thing. I watched from my phone as the footage aired. Maya standing outside in her pajamas, pale and hollow-eyed, while movers hauled out her furniture. Reporters crowded around her. Maya, do you have any comments on the fraud case? Do you regret your actions? She said nothing, just stood there, shoulders hunched, watching everything she had stolen being taken away piece by piece. Gone were the designer clothes. Gone was the smug expression. Gone was the aura of superiority. She was now just another disgraced fraud with no friends, no family, no money, and no influence. Nothing. Later that night, my phone buzzed with one final message from Maya. Maya, you destroyed me. I stared at the screen, letting the words sink in. Destroyed her? She had done that all on her own. She had stolen from me, mocked me, used me, and now, with everything falling apart, she wanted to pin it on me? I let out a quiet laugh, then slowly typed my reply. No, Maya. You did that all on your own. Then I blocked her number. That was it. No more second chances. No more looking back. For the first time in years, I was free. And Maya? She was just a cautionary tale, a reminder of what happens when you betray the wrong person. Her name was splashed across the headlines. Her face plastered all over the news. Once the woman who fed on admiration and attention, she was now the town's biggest scandal. I imagined what it felt like for her to walk down the street, weighed down by every whisper, every stare. She used to strut confidently, head high, as if she was above everyone. Now, she probably kept her eyes down, praying not to be recognized. But people recognized her. Oh, they absolutely did. And no one felt sorry for her. The final fall. A week after the eviction video went viral, Reed, my private investigator, emailed me. Reed, check this out. You're going to love it. Attached was a newspaper article. Former businesswoman Maya Ilson reportedly living with relatives after fraud scandal. I leaned back, reading each word with quiet satisfaction. Maya was officially broke. Her accounts were frozen, her credit shattered. No landlord would rent to her. No bank would even consider her. She had nothing left. And Gavin? He was in even worse shape. Reed included another attachment, Gavin's mugshot. I couldn't help but grin. Turns out, Gavin's plea deal had collapsed. Though he agreed to testify against Maya, investigators uncovered even more embezzlement. More victims. More missing money. His deal was revoked. Now Gavin wasn't just possibly going to prison, it was a certainty. Maya's desperation. I knew she had hit rock bottom when I got one final voicemail. I shouldn't have listened to it. I should have just deleted it like all the others. But curiosity got the best of me. I pressed play. Her voice was barely recognizable, frail, broken. "Please," she whispered. "I don't have anywhere to go." I stared at the phone, listening to her voice crack and falter. She exhaled shakily. "You have every right to hate me." "I know that," she said, followed by a quiet sniffle. I don't know what to do." Another pause. Then, softer. "I wish I had chosen you." That was the moment I smiled. Because it wasn't just about the fraud. It wasn't just about the money. It was about something deeper. Maya had discarded me. She had mocked me, called me worthless, and picked Gavin over me. And now? Now she was alone. Broke. Ashamed. And with no one left to turn to. I didn't respond to the voicemail. I didn't call her back. Instead, I let her sit in the wreckage of what she'd built. Gavin's downfall begins. Gavin was arrested on a Tuesday morning. I learned about it through an article forwarded by an old friend. The headline was harsh. Scammer-turned-fraudster Gavin Matthews taken into custody after financial crimes exposed. I clicked it, scanning the details. He had been picked up at a rundown motel. Apparently, after leaving Maya behind, he'd been drifting from place to place, trying to stay off the radar. But once the truth about his schemes came out, people started talking. The motel manager tipped off the police. Now Gavin was looking at up to 15 years in prison. I set my phone down, letting out a slow breath. That was it. Gavin, the guy who always thought he was invincible, was now just another criminal in an orange jumpsuit. Maya's final plea. 2 days later, Maya sent an email. I almost ignored it until I saw the subject line. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but..." I opened it. Her message was long, filled with remorse, excuses, and regret. "Maya, I know I did terrible things. I don't expect you to ever speak to me again, but I have to say this. I messed up. I let greed and pride ruin everything. I thought Gavin was the better choice. I thought money and success mattered more than love and loyalty. I was wrong. I see that now. I see everything." I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then, without typing a word, I deleted the email. She didn't deserve closure. She didn't deserve a final conversation. She didn't deserve anything. 1 month later, with Maya and Gavin finally out of my life, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: freedom. The bank had cleared my name. My credit was restored. But best of all, I had won. Not just in court. Not just on paper. I had won emotionally. Because Maya and Gavin would never recover from this. They had spent years looking down on me. Now they were beneath me. No home. No money. No allies. No future. And me? I was moving on. I was never a waste of space. I was the only one who had ever truly stood on his own. For the first time in a long time, I felt peace. The storm had passed. No more lawsuits looming. No more forged documents threatening my life. No Maya. No Gavin. Just me finally free. But freedom wasn't just about winning. It was about beginning again. And that's exactly what I intended to do. Let go and start over. I took one final look at the old case files, the newspaper clippings, the emails from my lawyer confirming the last steps of the legal process. It was all officially over. Gavin was in prison. His entire scheme crumbled. Maya? She was just a name from the past now. She'd made one last desperate attempt to contact me, but I never read the message. I blocked her number, her email, every avenue she could use to reach me. She no longer existed in my world. I gathered the documents, the evidence of their downfall, and packed them into a box. Then I drove to the nearest dumpster and threw it all away. They had stolen enough of my time. They weren't getting another second. A clean slate. I knew it was time for a real change. The house I'd lived in for years held too many memories, some good, many bad. I needed a new space, one that didn't echo with Maya's laughter or the nights I lay awake, drowning in loss and betrayal. So I sold it. Just like that. The real estate agent was surprised by how quickly I made the decision, but I didn't hesitate. A month later, I had a new home, a sleek, modern condo overlooking the city. Nothing extravagant, just right for someone ready to start fresh. As I unpacked, I noticed something unexpected. I felt lighter, as if I'd been carrying invisible weight for years. The burden of Maya, Gavin, the betrayal, the shame, it was gone. I was starting over, and it felt damn good. The taste of real success. With the chaos behind me, I finally had the time and energy to focus on my own life. And for the first time in years, I began to thrive. My business took off. Without Maya draining me financially, without the constant stress looming over me, I poured myself into my work. Clients noticed. My productivity soared. My income tripled in just a few months. The potential had always been there. I had just been held back by the wrong people. Now, I was unstoppable. Closure in disguise. One evening, I sat at a cafe, sipping my coffee and enjoying the quiet, when I heard a name I hadn't thought about in weeks. "Did you hear about Maya?" I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. But I listened. A group of women at a nearby table were deep in conversation. She's been couch hopping for months, one of them said. No one wants to help her. Even her own family won't take her in. I stared down into my coffee, letting the words sink in. She had it all, another woman said, shaking her head. And now? She's nothing. That word nothing hung in the air. Maya had once laughed at me, called me a waste of space. And now she was living out her own insult. But instead of feeling victorious, I felt nothing. Because she no longer mattered. She was simply irrelevant to me. Now, I had moved on in Maya. She was nothing more than a cautionary tale. I finished my coffee, stood up, and walked out without a second glance. New connections, new life. One evening, I found myself at a networking event, something I used to avoid. But this time, it felt different. I was confident, calm, and open. I struck up conversations with ease, no longer burdened by the weight of the past. That's when I met her. She wasn't another Maya. She wasn't flashy, shallow, or obsessed with appearances. She was real, intelligent, driven, and grounded. Nothing like the people I had once let into my life. For the first time, I wasn't watching my back or bracing for betrayal. I was simply present, enjoying the moment. We exchanged numbers, and as I walked away, I realized I was excited about the future. The final lesson. One night, I stood on the balcony of my new condo, gazing out over the city lights. I had been through hell. I had lost everything. But in losing it all, I had gained more than I ever thought possible. I had found clarity. I had reclaimed my self-respect. I had discovered peace. And most of all, I had learned a lesson that would stay with me forever. Some people will use you, betray you, and mock you when you're down. But karma? Karma never forgets. And when it comes, it hits hard. Maya and Gavin had built their lives on lies, and now they had nothing. No home, no friends, no future. But me? I had rebuilt. I had flourished. And for the first time in a very long time, I was truly, completely happy. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.